This is like laying down some watercolour first, and then doing some line work on top of it. So I'm just going in with a bit of yellow and a bit of red just to mix up a nice warm Spanish colour. So a bit of water going on there, splashing that in. I'm not worrying too much about the shapes at this stage because a bit of water in there just to get it nice and get a bit of going on there. That water's going to be quite nice there. Some people there, and there's some shadows. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of darker colour here, and this is going to be some building on the other side. Don't worry about splats. That's the more the merrier, to be honest. There's a freedom to this type of watercolour which is quite cool. I like sometimes to just cut loose a bit with watercolour, and then tighten up with the line work, you know, see how that goes. Let's get a bit of blue going on at the top, a bit of sky. So this might look a bit loosey-goosey, but it's all good. Freedom, you know, these sort of things are good just to loosen up a bit, get you, you know, kind of get you in the mood before you sort of do anything a bit more serious. So what we're going to do now is wait for this to dry, and then we're going to go in and we're going to add some line work to get a bit of a feel for that. I'm going to put a little bit of, mix up a bit of purple down here. I'm using quite a big chunky brush here because it's quite freeing. And when you're doing this kind of thing, you can do that. And look, there's a lovely texture. You can see that on the paper there. Actually, there's a really lovely texture around here. And when that dries, that's just gonna soak into the paper. It's gonna be wonderful. So yeah, I'm gonna let that dry and then come back to that with some pencil. Okay, you can see that this has dried off nicely now. Lovely soft texture we've got going on, which is really nice. So I'm going to fairly quickly go in and just add some detail in here. I'm going to go in quite loose, and obviously I could take as much time or as little time as I want here. So I'm just using a reference photo for this, but obviously when we're in Malaga, we'll be actually drawing the real thing, which would be cool. So I'm just going in quite light here, quite pale, because this is in the distance. So anything that's in the distance, I'm thinking, you know, it's in the background. So I want to keep that quite pale if I can. So I'm going in quite light with some of these lines. We can go in and do a lot more detail on this, obviously, at some point. But what I want to try and do at this stage is just working on top of this, and I'm not worrying too much about, you know, staying within the lines. And actually, you know, you can sort of see it's quite fun to mess this up a bit. So I'm sort of treating this background as a little bit of a guide for some of the shapes, but I'm not being hidebound to it. I'm not worrying too much about it. And you can sort of see here, we've got the tower. And we can go in, if we had a lot more time, I'll add lots of detail here. But for the sake of this demo, I just wanted to show you the sort of art of the possible, really. And in the foreground, there's some big umbrella things that people sit under, drink rosé wine, you know, that kind of vibe. So I'm going to put them in there. There's actually another balcony here. And I'm just adding a little bit of detail on these windows. We can go back in and we can add all the little balcony things there. This is actually a piece of roof, tiling. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm using a nice soft pencil here as well. So this is a 2B, it might be a 4B. And then there's this building here which is quite cool. It's in the foreground, so I'm gonna add a bit of extra there. And so it's starting to come together. There's some extra detail in here. I use the pencil, useful to kind of keep it relatively sharp. But what you can see what I'm doing here is just kind of using different angles of the pencil just to be a bit more expressive with it. The great thing about pencil is it's, there's no rights or wrongs. You can just do what you like with it. You can just let the pencil do all the work. We've actually got some really quite nice sort of telephone lines there. I always find they all kind of always add to the mood of the kind of ramshackle nature of the scene. But you can sort of see by adding that colour first, it just gives you something to go at. Other way of doing it, of course, is just doing line work first and then adding that, and that's totally different. That's totally fine. I mean, I do both, but we'll try both techniques out, I think, because I think that'd be quite a good fun thing to do. This would work equally well in pen. If you wanted to work in pen, that would work a treat. Just getting those buildings in there. And actually, we've got quite a lot of people in the foreground here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some indications of people in. Now, when I'm looking for real detail here around people, I'm looking for just a feel. So, you've kind of got some references. When you got, top tip is when people are moving a lot, is to take a photo. Don't be afraid to take some shots, and, I'm trying to sort of get these people here nice and when you do it like this, there's lots of movement. So you can sort of see we've got a bit of a vibe going there with that. Actually, there's a bit of a tree there, so I'm going to put that in. But you can sort of see I'm using the white space here as well. I'm leaving. You see, I could happily leave that as it is right now because it looks the part to me. We can go back in, and we can add. We can add other things if we want. We can add some white. We can put there. So we've got some people here. So we got some nice things there, and then we've got the balconies here. So really quite quickly there. I mean, I can, if I had more time and I was sat there on that corner, then what I'd be doing is probably just taking a little bit more time with all the detail here. But actually what I really like there is just the quick expressive nature of the drawing. And this could take, well, I could work on this for another 2 hours and add more detail if I wanted. Or I might just say to myself, you know what, I really like what's going on there with that. I love the looseness of it. There's an energy to all this that's going on down here. Yeah, it's cool. So I'm really pleased with that. I'm actually back put some mix up some gouache and just add some gouache as a finishing touch. So I've mixed up some gouache, which is a kind of a nice opaque white. This is a schminker one, which is quite cool, so that's good. So I'm just going to bob in some bits of some white here. And you can see just by adding that already, it gives you a bit of a yeah, nice. And you can go in and add some bits of white as you need it. And you can just keep going with that. But yeah, I like what gouache does. We can mix that up with all sorts of different colours, by the way. So gouache is quite mixable. So like I've just added a bit there, so we can put some pink in. Yeah. So I think I'm going to leave that. As you can see, we can add lots to that, but that's just a really quick demo of the type of thing that we're going to be learning when we're in Andalucía in September from the 19th to the 26th. Hope to see you then.